Geraldine King remembers the last time she said goodbye to her husband.
I remember the lunchbox under the arm. And it was just a normal day. I remember the coffee after we went to work. Miners went to work early.
Roy Edward McKnight left his wife and 2 children on that March morning and reported for work at the Scotia No. 2 coal mine. A few hours into the shift, an explosion would rip through the mine. 93 men would scramble to safety. 15 miners, including Roy, would be missing.
We realized it was a serious problem when we could not contact anybody on the section. And the operator, belt operator at the mouth of the section, he could not get a hold of anybody on the section.
As news of the accident spread, a crowd gathered on the road below the mine. Rescue teams were dispatched to the scene.
You know, when I went up there, and you have to remember that this man was absolutely, you know, nothing could happen to him, okay? But it did.
It was here on this site where family and friends gathered to find out the fate of the coal miners trapped inside. From here they would be taken to a building nearby, and there they would wait and pray, still holding out hope that the miners inside would still be found alive.
And everyone knew the men were dead except for us. And when we got, someone came in, a man in a business suit, and said that the bodies had been recovered, and they were all dead.
As memorial services were planned, federal mining officials began wanting immediate answers. The mine had a history of methane gas problems, and there were questions about whether the operation had been properly ventilated. A team of men volunteered to re-enter the mine later that night and prepare for the investigation. It would prove to be a fatal mistake. Shortly before midnight, a second explosion would occur. This time, 11 men were missing. Rescue teams were ordered to return immediately, and the emergency process was restarted. There was hope this time that the men would be found alive, but as the hours passed, that hope dimmed, and the final word arrived.
We have bad news. At 12:07, the mine rescue team got to the people, and they're all 11 dead.
26 men killed in 2 explosions. Federal mining officials didn't want to take any chances. This time they issued an order: seal the mine, with the bodies of the men still inside.
Oh, it was a terrible thing to have to do, close these people up in the mines. But MSHA made us do it, so we didn't have any other choice but to seal the mine.
That was very, very frightening, because you always depend on the mine rescue team to come in and handle any situation. And when they were killed during the recovery, it was very frightening. It's almost like there's no hope.
Many men are in danger, and we don't know.
The mine would remain sealed for 8 months before teams could re-enter and recover the bodies. During that time, a series of hearings were held on the Scotia explosions. The lessons learned accelerated coal mine safety laws across the country.
It was early this morning. He passed by these houses on his way to the coast.
The history of coal mining is filled with stories of injuries and death, accidents and explosions. Yet it wasn't until March 1976 that a disaster shook the industry by its heels and brought about major changes in the way miners do their jobs. 26 miners were killed in 2 separate explosions at the Scotia coal mine in Letcher County. The last explosion killing volunteers who entered the mine to help investigate the first blast a couple of days before. A buildup of methane gas inside the mine caused the explosions.
Some of them had their self-rescuers off and had attempted to use the self-rescuers. But there was probably no oxygen in that area after the explosion to sustain life.
It wasn't until 1993 that the Mine Safety and Health Administration issued its final report on the Scotia coal mine disaster. In that report, it revealed problems dealing with ventilation inside the mine, also problems dealing with pre-shift examinations for methane gas. The coal industry itself learned of costly errors dealing with training for coal miners and training for those people who were assigned to rescue efforts.
That created the fact that miners had to be initially trained. Miners have to be annually retrained, and that was a great big event for the training of miners. Prior to that, there was no training. And from the Scotia explosion, we're still learning. We study mine rescue. We just don't know about it. We study it and we look for ways to improve it.
New equipment was manufactured and purchased. Self-rescuers provided to the miners in Scotia were only capable of handling smoke and did not provide oxygen. Miners today have rescuers that do provide oxygen for up to 1 hour. Geraldine King lost her husband in the Scotia explosion. She says she respects the improvements that have been made, but she's also bitter about what she refers to as decisions made to cut corners in safety at that time, a move she says was too costly to forget.
An accident is something that happens that you can't prevent. If they'd ventilated that mines, even if it wasn't ventilated, if it had been far advanced, if they hadn't short-circuited the air, if that equipment, no, was no accident. Those men were killed.
It was just before
There's not much left in Oven Fort, Kentucky to remind you of the Scotia disaster. Just a few worn tipples, no monuments, no recognition. The death of King's husband left her with 2 small children. They are grown now and have children of their own. She says they are the only monuments to her husband which can dull the pain of a tragedy 25 years ago.